Host Mike Tooman and Paul Burvid every Saturday, noon to 2 on WRMN 1410 AM, the Fox River Valley Media Network, streaming on WRMN1410.com. Studio call-in numbers are 847-931-1410 or text us at 505-926-1410. Hit us up in the comments on the YouTube live channel. WRMN 1410 has a YouTube channel, and we're live on it right now. And later on, I will be transferring the show over to the Chief Guard of the Republic YouTube channel. And you can find the links for that on cgr.silink, PSYLINK.net. So, Paul, how you doing?
Great. I'm doing really good. I'd like to do a personal shout out. Today would be my grandmother's about 135th birthday. And actually next week would be our co-host Marla's father's 100th birthday. So I'd like to do a shout out to both of them. And after the show, I'm going to go take a ride to the cemetery and put a little pumpkin out for my grandma. So she'd be about 135 right now.
Nice. And hopefully it's not, it's something that the deer can eat, because I know you filmed the deer there.
Yeah, we're a big proponent on the local deer population, especially the ones out south around 111th Street.
Yeah, at the end of the season, they throw all the pumpkins out in the field by me, and the deer come and eat them.
Yeah, the deer really like the pumpkins.
Yeah. So, what's your shutdown update?
My shutdown update is the same. I don't. It's like another Sunday. So far, I guess we've reached a month of Sundays, and I don't know. Do we know anything more? Are they going to reignite the government again, or what's going on?
I heard something that made sense and was reasonable. All right, and not reasonable in that it's whatever happens, it just makes sense. It's so Tuesday is an election, right? So
it is.
Yeah, but it's an off-season election. So there's it's local governments, like the states or cities or anything, and still you have the party alignments there. And I think at this time, having been through a month of it, and especially at the beginning of the month, with a lot of funds not being available and a lot of people not getting paid, federal governments, especially the essential workers who are there every day, still haven't got paid. So they still got to pay for their gas, their commute, their everything else. Not everyone has deep pockets or 3 months worth of savings to live off of, right? So they didn't want to open the government just to make those paychecks immediate, because then they didn't know if they're admitting defeat or they're giving a victory to the other side. So I think they're waiting until Wednesday.
That's a good. There's just as an aside, but it's really not an aside. There's a guy that has a YouTube channel called Ford Boss Me, and he's a Ford guy, but he delves into common interest type stuff. And he's got a campaign going on where he's going to smoke meat and give it out. But he had an interesting video the other day. At one point, his family was on welfare. And actually, I made a comment on his website. And I know a little bit about this because I was in charge of the WIC fraud unit. And a friend of mine worked for me. His name was Marty, and it was funded by the state police. And in the WIC days, which you may, I think, are familiar with a little bit, they used to give you checks, but they were called food instruments. And they would say on there, Cheerios.
Yeah, it's like a coupon.
Right. But the stores got reimbursed by the federal government, whatever the food instrument was, okay? And what we found out, particularly at the south side of Chicago on the east side, people were getting these food instruments and they were either trading them for narcotics,
No.
or if it was $150 WIC coupons, the store guy would give them 80 in cash. And they would go, buy booze, drugs, or whatever. And there were even a couple of instances where machine guns were purchased with food instruments. And I was in that unit and we were prosecuting that. And, that's one of the programs that they're talking about with this.
Yes.
So, you have to take this government shutdown stuff with a real grain of salt. And there's no doubt that there are people being hurt and harmed by not getting funds. But there's also no doubt that there's a lot of the new catchword waste, fraud, and corruption in there. But as I pointed out, and as the guy verified, it's been going on for 40 years.
No.
So, since whenever they start a program, it's like that old idea of E.E. Schatzsnyder. You show me you show me a program, I'll tell you who benefits, how, where, why, and how. And that's kind of how it goes. Whenever there's a program, there's always an ability to either abuse it, misuse it, or
it's designed specifically for abuse.
Right. Or it's designed specifically for one day every 2 years so that you come out and you vote the way they want you to vote.
And so one of the things back in the day before the EBT, electronic balance transfer, right? Before that, they had the actual food coupons, right? The food stamp coupons, and they came in various denominations. There's a couple things with that, right? One, you had to have your state of Illinois public aid card. You had to have an ID that showed that you were entitled to those coupons, and each coupon had to be signed by you, and you had to sign, the book had to be assigned to you, and you had to rip the coupons out singly and hand them over to the store. Once they were ripped out of the book, they became, the store got them, that's it, they're dead. They're supposed to be dead coupons, right? The other thing was, if you bought something like a candy bar, back then it was cheaper, like for 39 cents, then a lot of times the clerk would just give you 61 cents and change. So we were the place I was working was right next to a laundromat, and all of a sudden you get like 4 or 5 kids come in, right? They buy candy bars with the $1 food stamp coupons, and they're bringing the quarters back to mama so mama could do the laundry using the food stamps. And her kids get the nutritious breakfast of a candy bar.
A Snickers bar, yeah.
So there are low-level ways, then, okay, but there are big ways. There are big ways. So if I have a, quote, liquor store on the west side, but it's also a grocery store, and they also sell smokes, and they might even have some hardware, but it's a grocery store. And you go to the back, and there is a locked cooler. Inside the locked cooler is some milk that is nearly outdated, right? Some meat, some cheese, or whatever. And they say, hey, we have groceries here, so we could take, and they have the baby food too, and the baby formula and stuff like that. So they are taking, like literally taking these WIC coupons and saying, hey, well, and they're ringing them up, right, at the overrated price, but they never sold it. Now they take what they said they sold, and they use that to feed their families or their extended families, because they're still buying this stuff so that the government can track, right? I can't say I sold 12 gallons of milk unless I actually bought 12 gallons of milk to sell, right? But the scam, the money just being skimmed off of this. And when you were saying they're giving them $80 for $150 worth of that, Paul, that is a nice estimate for what they're getting. Normally, they're getting like back then, a carton of smokes would cost $10. and a bottle of booze would be $5. And they come up with their WIC coupon and they get a carton of smokes and a bottle of booze, and that was it. Because they took what they wanted when they needed it, and they didn't realize its true value. To them, the true value was this coupon isn't worth $100. And you would have to go to the highest price store in the world to have to pay $150 for what was on the WIC coupon, right?
Right.
It would be a couple gallons of milk, formula, cereal, right? Some stuff like that. Fruits, canned fruit or juice would be on there, special types of juice. And if you bought it all at Aldi or at some other grocery store there, it would end up running you about $60.
Right.
And that's all the store would get reimbursed, because they would have to write on the coupon what the receipt for that money was, without what those things cost, without taxes, because it's non-taxable too. There's no sales tax on that. So yeah, no, the fraud, waste, and abuse is amazing on those things, just amazing. And the one thing that really gets me, right, is they're getting food stamps for the kids. And that doesn't bother me. The kids need to eat. If the parents aren't capable of getting a job or wanting a job or whatever, you shouldn't punish the kids, right? So you have this food stamps to feed the children. I could care less about the adults, all right? Go dig through a garbage can at the beach, all right? But for the children, I would want them to eat. So the program is there for good reason. The kids go to school. They are fed breakfast, lunch, and then a dinner after school, and then they go home. They're fed 3 meals there. Yet their parents are getting paid to feed them 3 meals at home. Breakfast, provide them with to take their school lunch, and have dinner at home. That's what the food stamps list for the kids. But the kids, five days out of the week, they're eating at the school. So you don't need all that food, right? So the food, because you got more than you need, because whatever, right? And then, to top it off, in the summer, they were going out to Cabrini with lunches, right? And they would say, hey, officer, can you call them down to come eat? Because, there was no school. So they brought the food out to them. I go, well, what are you giving their parents food stamps for then, if you're bringing them free food? Again, I don't want to punish the children. And I don't want to the children not to exist, all right, or anything like that, or end children before they're even born because the parents can't afford to feed them, whatever. That isn't right either. But the fact that there's so much fraud, waste, and abuse on this, and it's not enforced. It's not. No one cares. You would have to really. How many of the Ethiopians over or Somalis over in Minnesota, $275 million worth of food fraud for feeding these kids meals and stuff. $275 million. How many of them are in prison? I haven't heard anything about those prosecutions. They just said there was $275 million of fraud. Don't do it again. Find a new scam, because we caught you on this one. $275 million later, we caught you. The government's never going to recover that money. Never. It's gone. It's blown. It's overseas. Because, again, who's the number one funder of terrorism in the world?
The United States.
The United States. And not that we give money directly. The U.S. government says, here, terrorist organization, here's some money, from the government. It's the people that are sending that money overseas. It's the people committing fraud with everything that they haven't earned, stealing money, sending it overseas, kind of like the mob does. They're kicking up. They're kicking up. They made $275 million, and they're kicking up 60% of it back overseas. or they're shifting it overseas, and when they get kicked out of the United States or deported, or they're one step before an indictment, prosecution, incarceration, right?
Yes.
Then they go, or by the actions of another. You know,
you're right. You're right.
You're starving, shelters out there. There are charities out there that have multiple credit cards with balances on them, and making late payments because they forget about them because they had so many of them. You know, and I'm saying, look, you could take this cash asset that you have, this capital that you have right now. This is like simple economics, right? You got this massive capital right now. It's going to pay you 3 to 5% if you're a real good trader and everything, and you work real hard on it, and you got a real good trader working with you. You could take it and invest it and make 10%, of which they're going to take 50% in taxes, leaving you with 5%, right? Or you could pay off your 29% store cards, everything with this, and then every month with your income coming in, you've just increased your cash flow by $400 or $500. You know, you're paying $400 or $500 for interest alone. That's not doing anything for your family. Sure, it was nice to have that thing. Now it's old, broken, and gone. Where's it at?
You're right.
That's what the U.S. government is like. That's what the people, that's why last week when I was talking about protecting the veterans, right?
Right.
And I says, we need to make it expensive as
all get out
for the government to go to war. Expensive is all get out to put our soldiers in harm's way. Expensive is all get out for these little, shows that they're putting on. They need to keep it expensive because we want to make them pay for it. They want to look at it and say, is it worth it now for what we're going to pay down the road? And then I kind of laughed at myself, and I'm like, man, that's the dumbest thing you ever said, Mike, because they don't care. It's down the road. It's not like it's real money. It's money for 10 years from now. And again, as we're paying interest on the national debt, which are mostly foreign countries buy our debt, foreign entities buy our debt, and we're paying them interest on that. We're paying them big time interest on that. They are running their entire organizations based on our national debt. Because someone wanted to, look at these poor starving children, and they want to feed them. Yeah, okay, feed them, but in a reasonable way. There should be, the slightest bit of work requirement. You could be the dumbest, laziest person on earth, right?
Yep. I'm
going to make you show up in a building and sit there for 8 hours watching educational shows like how to read and how to write. That'll be your job. You just got to sit there. It'll be loud. It'll be cold. They won't be able to fall asleep. But okay, here's your pay. You got to work. We'll give you food stamps now. What? And don't tell, they got to watch the children. Don't even get me started with that one. All right? Because that is also a scam and a half. We'll be back for the second quarter of the show.
They signed the Comprehensive Trust Ban Treaty finally in 2001. So what's interesting, though, is, we used to test the weapons underground, usually in Nevada, not too far from Las Vegas. And we've stopped testing weapons now since I think we have since 1992 or 1996. And most of the other nations have stopped testing them. What they're doing is they're running huge computer models on it. And, presently there's various estimates, but there's about 5,000 warheads by these 9 countries. Okay. And I think the largest number are in Russia, and the second largest are in the United States, followed by China, France, the United Kingdom, and then India, Pakistan, Israel, and North Korea. So I've heard, though, that one of the things, I don't want to get into technicality on this, one of the things that makes the weapons go off are plutonium triggers. And we haven't manufactured those in a long time. And I think of concern to the government is whether the plutonium triggers will work. And I think that's why they want to start testing some to see if they have to reinstitute the line of preparing for them.
So you have different types of warheads, right? Like everyone lumps the warheads into these the thermonuclear warhead bomb, the 20 megatons. Russians made a 50 megaton, right? But really anything over 20 megatons is moot, right? You're going to blow up just as big of a blow up. A 50 megaton might give you an extra couple yards in the crater, an extra couple yards, as opposed to 20 megatons. Oh, well, it's a little smaller, but you can't really tell. All right. Because at those explosive levels, you really hit that J curve level. All right. But the Russians like their 30 megatons, and but most of those warheads that you're talking about are atomic bombs. They're not the thermonuclear. They're not the fission bombs, right? So there's like 2 types. There's the atomic bomb from World War II that we dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and those are kilotons, right? So
correct.
I'm not gonna take time to explain the physics and everything to everybody on that, but those are measured in kilotons. So that's 1,000 pounds. 1 kiloton is 1,000 pounds. No, 2,000 pounds. So it's 1,000.
It's like a 2,000-pound bomb.
Yeah. No, wait. No, it's 1,000 pound bombs. It's 1,000 2,000 pound bombs. All right. So, yeah. All right. So, like, if you had a whole fleet of B-52s and everything dropping every, you took all the B-52s and loaded them up full and dropped those stuff, you wouldn't have the warhead that you had in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The thing is that they've miniaturized these now. They're smaller, right? So small that they could be fit into a 6-inch cannon or a 220 cannon. You had the atomic cannon, but you also had nuclear-capable rounds for 155 millimeter howitzer. Like, that's small, right? And those things were like a kiloton or half a kiloton or quarter kiloton, just enough to wipe out a grid square, which is, 1,000 square meters or 1,000 meters by 1,000 meters. So that's what it's 1,000,000 square meters. All right. So about 9 million square feet. That just all it'll wipe out, right? Like a very large building. So most of those are the small ones. The thing with those is what you're talking about, the triggers, is the half-life on tritium, which is heavy. You'll hear about World War II and Hitler's, now Larry's going to get in, he's going to call in, all right, because I mentioned the H word, and I should have mentioned that guy. But the Axis was tested nuclear, and they made heavy water, which was water made with tritium, Hydrogen. So hydrogen normally has an atomic weight of 1. It's got 1 proton, 1 electron. Thulium is an atomic weight of 2, so it's got a proton and a neutron inside the nucleus, which makes it more unstable because that neutron wants to run away from the nucleus. Same thing with tritium, which has 2 neutrons. So it's very unstable. If you could split that that causes a chain reaction because it sends out those neutrons really fast, which sets off the dense uranium or the dense plutonium to create the chain reaction. All right.
They made a song about this called Neutron Love.
Neutron Love. Yeah. So now thermonuclear, which is bigger, requires more, right? But you get a bigger explosion because now it's causing fusion. It's actually causing these hydrogen atoms to combine, right, into helium. And when they combine that, it releases a ton of energy, more so than just splitting, the chain reaction splitting the uranium.
It's called a fission, fusion, fission bomb. It creates a temporary little sun.
Yeah. So, if you had a 20,000 rounds of ammunition, Paul. Let's say, you're going out to shoot rifle, shoot in a rifle competition, and it's all 223, all right, or 5.56, right? Whatever. Winchester. There's arguments over 223 versus 5.56. I don't know what the difference is, but someone may tell me.
The chamber pressure.
Okay, so you have this ammunition, and now you have a decision. I'm gonna go out and I'm shooting to be on the president's 100 or the governor's 40, right? Which the president's 100 is top 100 shots in the United States, whether civilian or military. Governor's 40, same thing, but it's for the governor, right? You want to make sure that all of your ammunition is good, or that there's a good chance that your ammunition is good. So you can't fire it all, right?
You're going to do a random sample.
You're going to do a random sample, but right
based on manufacturer and lot numbers.
Not only are you going to shoot it, right? Actually fire it, but you might want to even take it apart and find individual components that might have gone bad.
Correct.
Like the powder went bad, or the
primers.
The primer cap went bad, or they weren't crimped or something, or they got wetter or something.
Correct.
The same thing goes with these smaller nuclear devices and the bigger nuclear devices. You're not so much testing blowing up the whole bomb, right? You might just be testing to see if those triggers work. Because without the trigger, it's not going off. It's not even a dirty bomb. So you want to test components, and then you're going to say, well, these components were all made at this company during this time, and one of them failed. If one of them fails, what do you do with the rest of them, Paul?
You start testing them.
You get rid of them all. You don't even bother with testing them. You get rid of them all and you replace them all. You're talking about millions of dollars worth of weapons, right? That your country might want to rely on this, right? Want to rely, so you want it to make sure it works. If you have one failure in 1,000, that's unacceptable. You got to pull them all, and you got to put in new components that have not proven to fail. That's why you're testing these things. You're testing components. If one of them fails, you got to replace them all. You can't play because, again, you said there's only 5,000. We probably have about 3,000 of those smaller nuclear warheads. If one of them fails, overall, it's cheaper to replace that one component in 3,000 items than to have 100 duds that you don't know which ones are dud. Or you pull the components and you test all the components. But if one failed, right? If one, you're testing them, you're not testing them by a continuity check or something, right? You're testing to see if they actually work. And if one actually fails, you know, the only way you can test it is that the one doesn't work, right? So you take a random sample. If they're all passed, then you're playing the odds that they're all good, right? But if one of those random samples fails, I'm not playing those odds. I'm replacing all that stuff. I'm replacing all those components.
Correct.
You know, like the main thing they got to go through is, and here's the thing: these things have electronics in them, right? Electronics, boards, things corrode, right? You just can't take a flashlight, throw in the old alkaline Everlast batteries, or what is the bunny batteries, right? Ever ready batteries in it, and sit it on the shelf for 10 years and come back and you open it up and it's all corroded. It's not working now, right?
Correct.
Anything electronic, batteries, keeping it up, timers, everything, you know, you don't do the cold starts, there's could be, is subject to entropy. It's all subject to entropy. It's just a matter of time. These things aren't going to last. You know, it's not this mysterious space stuff where it comes down and look, it's been in orbit. It's been in orbit for 10,000 years. It came down and still works. It's highly unlikely. Be nice if it did, right? But without the testing, you can't be sure. Now, if your competitors are testing their stuff all the time, right? And they're finding faulty components and they're replacing all the components. They are they are inferring from that you have faulty components too. And if you're not testing it, then they're just inferring that your stuff is degrading because they look at theirs and said, well, we had a 10% failure rate on this component, this, that, everything else, but we replaced all the components. So now we're pretty sure we got a 99.9% effective rate on our nuclear arsenal. Whereas our competitors didn't do it. And when we add up all the components that failed, spreading them out across the whole group of these, right? We estimate that now our competitor there has only a 25% possible, you know, he has a 75% probable failure rate. That doesn't make for good deterrence. So if we're not, yes, it's expensive to test. Yes, the most expensive part of a nuclear weapon is not building it. The most expensive part of a nuclear atomic weapon is
testing and storing it.
Maintaining, testing, storing, maintaining, maintenance.
Yep.
Storing it, keeping it safe. You need people there and everything. And it's always going to, all right, so ballistic missiles, intercontinental, ICBMs, right? What happens when you fuel an ICBM and you don't use it?
Corrodes.
It's gone. You can't use it anymore. It's gone. It's toast. You got to very carefully drain that rocket fuel out, which has already corroded all the elements, right? And you got to toss that ICBM and you got to get a new one to put those warheads on. Because again, it's good. It's a massive, you've just increased your failure rate to like, yeah, there's like a 60% chance that this rocket, even if we emptied all the rocket fuel out, there's a 66% chance that it's not gonna work. So you just,
well, at one time we had Atlas and we had Titan nuclear ICBMs, and we had like 54 of the Titan, and the rest were Atlas, right? And then they changed to Atlas, Century, and all that. But as we were starting to find out that the Titans were aging out, we transferred those to NASA for satellites, and they were using the Titan IIs for doing, some of the deep space stuff was used with former ICBM components.
Yeah, but there's
And
solid
then we
rocket boosters.
replaced them with the Minuteman.
Yeah, there's solid rocket boosters, which is just a solid, like you would use on a big scale of what you would use launching model rockets.
Bottle rocket or skyrocket.
Yeah. Then there's
the liquid fuel.
The liquid fuel, which is usually a binary agent. So you got two things
that
you mix together.
Fuel and the oxidizer.
Yeah.
Because remember, in space, there's no oxygen.
Yeah, so you got to have. Well, you don't need it.
Well, you got to carry your igniter with you.
Or you just use a nuclear igniter,
which is usually liquid oxygen or hydrogen peroxide.
Yeah. Yeah, peroxide, because it's H2O2. So you also have the hydrogen left to burn. All right.
Correct.
So if you're relying on this stuff, it's only reasonable that you would test it and maintain it. Maintaining isn't good enough. You want to take a random sample every once in a while and see if it works. All right, so when we come back, second half of the Chief Guard of the Republic radio show, talking about nuclear weapons and why they need to be tested. Want to read some action-packed, exciting pulp fiction? Read the works of Michael Tooman, now featuring the international crime thriller, I Married a Bot Madam. Available on Amazon in hardcover, paperback, and Kindle editions. The paperback is also available at other book retailers. Check out Michael Tooman's webpage at Scilink.net. That's Papa, Sierra, Yankee, Lima, India, November, Kilo, dot, November, Echo, Tango. Join your co-hosts Mike Tooman and Paul Burvitt on our weekly radio hour, Chief Guard of the Republic, where we talk about all things national security, defense, personal security, safety, and dealing with law enforcement situations. Call in 847-931-1410. Ask us questions. We will get you answers. Every week, Saturday, noon to 1 on 1410 AM WRMN Elgin. Streaming on WRMN1410.com. Chat with us on WRMN's YouTube live channel.
Your hometown radio station since 1949. We are WRMN AM 1410 Elgin time, 1 o'clock.
When disaster strikes, flood or fire, every second counts.
90s, and they started practicing law like the year Social Security came into effect. You know what I'm saying? And then I've heard of stories that there were guys that were some of the first recipients collecting Social Security in 1933, and they were still working in the 90s. So you never know. You know what I'm saying?
No, I had a doctor evaluating me for the VA, and he started practicing, and I was going in front of this guy in like 2020 or something, right? He started practicing in 1952. 1952. The guy was older than dirt. And you got to wonder, why is he still working?
I've said that many times, but there's two theories on that. If you love your job, it's not work. But if you are working, there's something wrong.
Yeah, because it should be a self-licking ice cream cone by now.
Correct.
Yeah. So once you take out the fraud, waste, and abuse, right?
Yeah.
There's a second thing that not only, okay, so there was a problem in a 501c something. I don't want to be specific, right? But it's a 501c something. And there was a problem with abuse of the funds. And people were up in arms saying, we need to do this, we need to do that, all right? This person needs to be prosecuted, it needs to go to jail and everything. And I'm like, well, unfortunately, who's going to go to court on this all the time? Every time, not miss a date. Secondly, you're going to start a little civil war because this guy's got friends with the other parts of the organization, and of course he's going to claim innocence, even though we know he's not. He's going to say he's being
targeted, harassed.
Everything else, and you're going to cause you're going to be airing your dirty laundry. I says, done. Kick him out, and then we're done with it. When we write off the loss, we write off that loss. Now, you're talking maybe a couple $1,000s, right? But you write off that loss and you start again fresh, right? That was the only way I would take over the financials for that was if that was the case, because I wasn't going to fight this big battle and everything. I wasn't in when all this stuff was happening and all this. But here's the thing with the Social Security, all right? Senior police officer in the Chicago Police Department was collecting his dead mother's Social Security benefits for 7 years. What happened to him? Nothing. Nothing. I don't even know if he had to pay the money back. The excuse is, I didn't know. I'm sorry. I didn't know is not a defense on that. That's your bank account. All of a sudden, you're getting this thousands of dollars in there that $1,000 a month or whatever. May not have even been that much money, right? But you're getting money in there and you're not sure, and you're not collecting Social Security because you're not old enough to, and you're not disabled because you're working for the police department at a boss rate, right? Same thing here. Where are the prosecutions? That's easy to track. The checks went somewhere. Someone cashed that check at some currency exchange or whatever. They're going to have a camera there. You're going to get that person. You're going to say, if they go, I didn't know, they just kept sending me the checks, so I kept cashing them. No, you knew or should have known. Prosecute them. Seize every cent they have. Everything. And then, but what would the government do with all that money that they seized? Would they pay off the national debt? Would they put it back on Social Security?
Right.
No.
To be taken by somebody else.
Yeah, they would put it in a slush fund somewhere. But you need to stop the hemorrhaging. You need to stop the hemorrhaging. People pay in and they expect you. If you were, well, I can't even say that. If a guy invested in your company, if you had a couple people invest in your company, like you want to open up a restaurant or anything, right? And people came in and ate and just walked out and never paid, and you didn't want to bother with them or confronting them. But now you're losing money because you're not getting paid and everything, but you keep allowing this to happen. Your partners will come and sue you because you're fiscally irresponsible, right?
That's how it should be, yes.
All right. The government does the same thing, and no one cares if they're fiscally irresponsible.
Well, in some corners, they're expected to be fiscally irresponsible.
True.
Because we perpetuate the idiocy, you know?
Well, you remember the original 60s television show, The Addams Family, right?
I do.
Gomez Addams, what was his profession?
A lawyer.
He was. And how did he make money?
Wasn't he shorting something or doing something like that?
No, he was so inept. He was like the worst lawyer ever that companies would hire him so they would take a financial loss for tax purposes.
Okay.
So he was so inept that he would gloriously lose. The company would want to lose money, and he would lose the money. So, like in the producers, right?
Yeah.
Their scam was
you're selling 1,000% of the company. Yeah.
It's 1,000% of the company, but it only works if it flops. But it was
correct. How do you pay everybody back? Exactly.
Yeah, but if it flops, you don't have to pay everyone back.
Right.
So, yeah. I'm just I hope things start to become not just personal responsibility, but when you're elected or put in a position of authority, I'm not even saying of the trust, authority, that you have the responsibility to make sure that everything is okay. You know, I mean, we are so in need of a balanced budget amendment, you know, where you can't shut down the government because the budget's going to be balanced or it's not going to be. You know,
right.
And you just get that, right? You just have to do that. And so everyone's got to say, you know, we can't kick it down the road. You know, if we get, and like I said, with tariffs, I'm getting it right, going all the way back into the tariff talk, if your money that's supporting your government is coming in from tariffs, right, then you want to know that you have a good enough economy that your people could buy foreign goods, and they could buy it at such a rate that they're paying that the foreign companies can pay the tariffs to the U.S. government. They're not going to send this stuff here and take a loss unless they want to take a loss, right? They're going to send it here to make a profit. And if they have to pay the government, have our government shake them down to pay them, sort of like the mob, right? So that they can operate in the United States, sell their stuff in the United States.
Right.
Then the citizens aren't getting taxed. So it's behooving to the citizens to be as productive as possible to get rich, because the government's not going to take your stuff, and you're selling you're buying your foreign luxury items or any items that you buy, you're paying the tariff on because you're making more money. Then you got in order to keep a good economy going in the United States so you can make more tariff money, you have to have production in the United States too. And if you're only collecting some tariff money from the steel, right? But you're not producing steel in the United States, and people don't have jobs, then they don't have the jobs to pay for the foreign steel. You know, it's a thing there. But I still think that you have more, the government has more skin in the game with tariffs than they do with income taxes. They'll just raise income taxes and say, oh, we're going to tax. When Clinton raised taxes on the rich, he says, I'm going to raise taxes on the rich, right? One reporter asked him, only one, right? Said, define rich. And Clinton said, a family of four earning more than $30,000 a year. Does that sound rich to you, Paul?
No, that sounds.
He raised taxes on everybody. And he just said, well, you're rich. Well, why are you rich? Because you have two shoes. That's my definition of rich. If you're not walking around barefoot, you're rich. It's a definition of how you define the word. I'm going to raise taxes on the rich. Well, who's rich? Well, everybody's rich. Taxes on everyone. See, you could just do that. It's not benefiting your economy. It's depressing your economy. But then you're giving the money to people that pay no taxes at all. None.
Correct.
It's being redistributed. Does that give them any incentive to work or make more money? No. It gives them incentive to tax the rich more so they can get more.
Right.
And yeah, so there's the rich. Senators are paid and bought for, so are not all. Not all. That's right. Not all. I'm sure there's a few out there. Along with the congressmen, they have interest, right? And the only interest in the world is
self-interest.
That's right. Self-interest. So it starts out with themselves, then it starts out with their party, and then it gets a little bit bigger from there. All right. So where was I going? I know, okay.
Auditing the programs and then taking the funds and applying them in a way that doesn't allow them to be obfuscated again.
Yes. Yeah. And the weapons too. The military
same principle.
Testing. If your soldiers can't shoot, are they ready to go to the battlefield? You're going to test whether soldiers can shoot. If your soldier can't run 2 miles or march 10 miles, is he or her ready to go to the battlefield? No. So you test them to make sure. If your trucks can't drive 20 miles without falling apart, are you ready to go? No. So you test them every once in a while. You go on road trips. You go on convoys. You test all this stuff. The same should be for the nuclear weapons. The same, on top of that, the readiness to deploy them.
Correct.
The same, hey, this is a test, not the fail-safe test, right? This is a test. Right. How long is it going to take you to say you're ready? And we're not asking you to fuel, right? But go through the procedures up until you fuel these things.
Correct.
Right? How long is it going to take you? All right, so I'm sure something will happen with the mainstream media. Well, they'll say something scary and trying to make you think we're going to like thermonuclear war or running around the full-blown running circles, spin panic mode. And we will tune back Saturday next week, noon to 2. We will calm your fears.
Happy November.